I came back for you decades ago.
What do you mean?
I waited for you.
Someone made sure we never found each other. Who?
Hello everyone, my name is Ellen Harper and I'm 73 years old. For 55 years I kept one ivory prom dress in my attic because of a promise I made to the boy I loved before he left for Vietnam. Then, after more than half a century, Daniel Mercer appeared at my front door. 3 weeks later we got married, but on our wedding night Daniel looked at me, took my hand and said 7 words that destroyed the story I had believed my entire adult life. I came back for you decades ago. At first, I thought I had misunderstood him. I had spent 5 years believing war, missing records and bad luck had stolen our future. Daniel told me that was only part of the truth. Someone had made a choice for us. Someone had stood between us and decided we should never find each other again. And the person who did it was not a stranger. It was my own sister. Before I tell you how I learned what really happened, I want to ask you something. If you are listening right now, please tell me in the comments where you are listening from and what country you are in. I always wonder how far a story like mine can travel. Now I need to take you back to the beginning. I grew up in Willow Creek, Ohio, in a white 2-story house with green shutters. My father repaired farm equipment, my mother worked at the town library, and my older sister, Marlene, was 3 years ahead of me in school. Daniel lived 6 blocks away. I had known him since we were children, but I really noticed him when I was 15. He was quiet, kind, and the sort of boy who remembered little things nobody else did. By senior year, everyone assumed we would eventually marry. For prom, I wore an ivory dress with a fitted waist and a soft skirt. My mother and I found it in a department store 2 towns away, and I worked extra Saturdays at a bakery to help pay for it. Daniel kept telling me I looked like I belonged in a movie. I teased him because his rented tuxedo was 1 size too large. At 18, our future felt simple. A small house, a family, ordinary mornings together. We had no idea how expensive those ordinary mornings would become. 2 weeks after graduation, the envelope arrived. Daniel had been drafted. I still remember him standing outside my father's garage with the paper folded in his back pocket. He tried to smile. "I guess Uncle Sam has plans for me first," he said. I wanted to be brave. Instead, I cried. The evening before he left, we drove to the hill above Willow Creek, where teenagers parked to watch the town lights. I had brought the prom dress with me because my mother had just had it cleaned and packed in tissue. I do not know why I brought it. Maybe I wanted to hold on to something from a happier night. Daniel opened the garment bag and touched the sleeve. Then he smiled at me. "When I come home, don't let anybody else see you walk down the aisle wearing this." I laughed through my tears. "Why?" "Because I want you to save it for me." I looked at him and said, "I promise." He kissed me before sunrise. That was the last time I saw him as a young man. Then the letters stopped. At first, I told myself mail was slow. Then I told myself his unit had moved. Then Daniel's parents received 2 military officers at their door. His helicopter had gone down during a mission near the border. Several men had been recovered. Daniel had not. He was listed as missing in action. Missing, that word became the centre of my life. Not dead. Not alive. Not coming home. Not gone. Just missing. I waited for an answer that never seemed to come. Every spring, I climbed into the attic and opened the garment bag. I let the dress breathe. I smoothed the skirt. I checked the seams. Then I wrapped it carefully and put it away again. That dress became a strange little calendar. Each time I opened it, another year had passed. 5 years. 10, 20, 30. The ivory slowly became warmer with age, but never fell apart. Neither did the promise. My sister Marlene used to tease me about it. "You are preserving a ghost," she said once. I remember the exact words because they hurt. I told her, "He is not a ghost until somebody proves it." She rolled her eyes and changed the subject. Then, one rainy afternoon in early October, someone knocked on my front door. The knock was slow. 3 taps, a pause, then 2 more. I almost did not answer because I was carrying laundry upstairs. When I opened the door, an elderly man stood on my porch. He was tall, though his shoulders had curved with age. His hair was silver. He held a brown leather folder against his chest. For a second, I thought he was lost. Then he looked at me. I knew his eyes. Time can change a face. It can soften a jaw, thin hair, bend a back, and put lines where smooth skin used to be. But some things remain. Daniel's eyes were still grey-blue, still steady, still gentle. I grabbed the door frame. He whispered, "Ellen." I could not answer. He gave a small, broken smile. "I have been trying to find my way back to you." And my knees nearly gave out. I reached for him. "You are really here?" He nodded. "I am really here." I touched his face because I did not trust my eyes. Then I started crying so hard I could barely breathe. Daniel cried too. We stood on that porch like 2 teenagers trapped inside old bodies. Finally, I brought him into the house. We talked until after midnight. Daniel told me pieces of what had happened. The helicopter crash had killed 2 men instantly. Daniel survived but suffered a head injury and burns. He was captured by local forces and moved repeatedly. Years later, after an escape attempt and another injury, he ended up across the border under a false identity used by men helping move prisoners and refugees. The records were a disaster. He spent years passing through hospitals, military interviews, and agencies that were trying to reconstruct what had happened. By the time his identity was fully restored and his family notified, his father had died and his mother was living with relatives in Arizona. Daniel said his memory had gaps for years. Some memories returned slowly. Others came back all at once. One of the first clear memories was me wearing an ivory dress. I asked him the question that had been sitting inside me for 55 years. "Why did it take you so long to come here?" Daniel looked away. "That was the first moment I felt something was wrong," he said. "It is complicated." I thought he meant the trauma, the military, the years of confusion. I did not push. I was too happy to have him sitting in my living room. On the 4th day, he asked me if I had ever married. I said no. His face changed again. Not surprise. "Pain," he whispered. "Never." "Never." He looked down at his hands. "What about children?" I shook my head. He closed his eyes. That should have warned me. Instead, I thought he felt guilty that my life had been different because I waited. I reached across the table. "Daniel, do not carry that. I made my own choices." He squeezed my hand but did not answer. A week later, he asked to see the prom dress. I took him to the attic. The stairs creaked under our feet. I opened the garment bag. For a long time, Daniel just stared. Then he touched the fabric with one finger. "You kept it." "I told you I would." He covered his mouth and turned away. 3 weeks after Daniel appeared at my door, we married in my home. Marlene came wearing a dark blue dress and pearl earrings. She hugged Daniel. That matters. Remember that. My sister looked Daniel in the face and hugged him. She told him, "It is wonderful that you two finally found each other." Daniel became very still. I noticed, but people were talking and moving around us. I thought he was overwhelmed. The ivory prom dress hung on a padded hanger near the piano. After, the ceremony, Daniel held my hand while our friends clapped. For the first time in 55 years, I heard someone call me Mrs. Mercer. I laughed, then I cried. That night, after everyone had gone, the house became silent. Then Daniel slowly removed his wedding ring. He turned it between his fingers. My stomach tightened. "Is something wrong?" I asked. He slid the ring back on. Then he said, "There is something I should have told you before today." I tried to joke. That is not a sentence a bride wants to hear. He did not smile. "Ellen, I was not separated from you all those years only because of the war." I stared at him. "What do you mean?" He took a long breath. "I came home long before I showed up at your door." The room seemed to shrink. "How long?" 38 years ago. I felt every muscle in my body go stiff. Daniel opened the brown leather folder he had carried the first day he arrived. Inside was an old envelope, yellowed, soft at the edges. My maiden name was written across the front. Ellen Harper. The handwriting looked almost like mine. Almost. Daniel said, "I came to Willow Creek in 1986. I could not speak. He continued, "My memory was much better by then. I knew who I was. I knew where I had grown up. I knew your name. Came here first. Here. To town. To your parents' house. I felt cold all over." Daniel's voice shook. "I stood on that porch. I asked for you. I whispered." He looked at me. "Marlene." My sister's name landed like a stone. Nambai. Daniel lowered his eyes. "She told me you were married." I shook my head. "No." "She said you had moved to Cincinnati. She said you had 2 children. She said you had spent years rebuilding your life and that hearing from me would destroy everything." "That is not true." "I know that now." I stood so quickly I nearly knocked over the lamp. "That is not true. I never lived in Cincinnati. I never married. I never had children." Daniel opened the old envelope. Inside was a folded sheet of paper. He handed it to me. I read it twice. Then a third time. Then another thought hit me. "Why did you keep the letter?" "Because it was the last thing I thought I had from you." I looked at him. The pain in his face stopped me from saying something cruel. He had been lied to too. I sat down. "How did you finally learn the truth?" I closed my eyes. Daniel continued. I knew either the letter was a lie or something had happened after it. I spent months trying to decide whether to contact you. I was terrified you would confirm that you had wanted me gone. So you came to the door. "Wes!" "And Marlene came to our wedding." "Wes, why did you not tell me before?" His eyes filled with tears. "Because I had just found you. I was afraid that if I opened this wound immediately, I would turn our first days together into an investigation. I told myself I would tell you. Then you said yes to marrying me. I should have told you before the ceremony." "I know that." I stared toward the prom dress. For 55 years I had blamed war, then history, then chance. Now I had a letter in my lap written by someone who had stolen my name. I said, "I need to know if Marlene wrote this." Daniel answered softly, "So do I." I did not sleep that night. At 4 a.m, I went to the kitchen and placed the fake letter under the light. There were things I noticed immediately. The paper was from a stationery set my mother kept in the desk. Cream paper with a tiny blue line along the edge. We had used it for thank you notes. The type was from an old electric typewriter. One letter sat lower than the others. The lowercase e, my father had complained about that machine for years. The E key struck slightly below the line. I remembered typing school papers on it. I also remembered who took that typewriter when our parents' house was cleared. Marlene. At 7 in the morning I called her. I did not accuse her. I said I needed to ask about some boxes from Mom's house. Her voice sounded normal. Too normal, she said. What boxes? The cedar chest and the desk papers. There was a pause. Then she said, "Why?" That one word told me more than a confession might have. I said, "I am looking for old letters." Another pause. "Ellen, you just got married. Why are you digging through dead people's papers?" I felt something inside me harden. "I will talk to you later." I hung up. Daniel found me in the attic 2 hours later. The cedar chest sat behind a stack of Christmas decorations. It had belonged to my mother. After she died, I took it because Marlene said she did not want old sentimental junk. I had never gone through the bottom layer carefully. Most of the chest held quilts, recipes, birthday cards, and photographs. Near the bottom, I found a flat cardboard box tied with string. Across the top, in my mother's handwriting, were 3 words: Ellen, Daniel, important. My hand started shaking before I even opened it. Inside were 9 letters. 7 were addressed to me, 2 were addressed to my parents. All were from Daniel. The earliest postmark was 1985. The latest was 1987. 3 had never been opened. I sat on the attic floor. Daniel lowered himself beside me. The first letter I opened was dated March 3, 1986. Ellen, I do not know if this will reach you. I am back in the United States. I have been trying to recover pieces of my old life. You are the clearest piece. I have not forgotten the hill. I have not forgotten the dress. I do not know what you have built without me, and I do not want to cause harm. I only need to know that you are well. Daniel, I could not finish reading aloud. The next letter was written after his visit to Willow Creek. Ellen, Marlene told me what you asked her to tell me. I will respect it. But I need you to hear one thing from me, even if this is the last time. I never chose to leave you. I never stopped trying to remember the way home. If you are happy, I will stay away. I only wish I could have heard it from you. Daniel, I pressed the page against my chest. That letter had never reached me. Someone had hidden it. The third unopened envelope contained a photograph of Daniel taken outside a veterans' hospital. On the back, he had written, "I look older than I should, but I am still me. I cried harder than I had cried at our wedding." Then Daniel found something else inside the box. A carbon copy. The fake letter. Not the one Daniel carried. A second copy. At the bottom of the page in blue ink were handwritten notes. Change, I hope you understand. To, please respect my decision and make it firmer. Do not leave room for argument. I knew that handwriting. Marlene had written birthday cards to me for 70 years. There was no mistaking it. Daniel whispered, "Ellen." I said, "She wrote it." But the worst thing was still underneath. At the bottom of the box was a small spiral notebook. Marlene's name was on the cover. I almost did not open it. When I did, I found notes from 1986. Some were ordinary: grocery list, dentist appointment, call insurance. Then I reached a page dated April 18. Daniel came to the house. He looks different, but it is him. Mom is at Ruth's. Ellen is at work. Told him she married. He wanted a dress. Did not give it. Need to make sure he leaves before Ellen comes by. I stopped reading. Daniel stared at the floor. I turned the page. There was more. May 2. Sent the letter. He believed it. I know this is cruel, but Ellen will throw everything away for him. Mom needs her. Dad needs her. And after all these years, why should Daniel get to come back and be the hero? I read the sentence again. Why should Daniel get to come back and be the hero? That was when another memory surfaced. Marlene had liked Daniel before I ever dated him. She had been 17. He had been 14. It was not serious, but she used to tease him and ask him to carry things for her. Years later, after Daniel and I started dating, she once said, "He always looked at you like I was not even in the room." I had forgotten that. Now I wondered whether she had. The notebook continued. May 19. Ellen asked if I think she should move to Dayton for the county job. Told her no. Mom needs help. If Daniel comes back into her life, she will leave. I felt sick. Daniel and I sat in the attic for almost an hour without speaking. It was not only jealousy, it was control. Marlene had decided that my life was useful to her. I was the dependable daughter, the one who stayed, the one who took our mother to appointments, the one who handled Dad's meals, the one who could be called at midnight. If Daniel had returned, I might have built a life somewhere else. Marlene did not want that, so she erased him. Then I found one more piece, a sealed envelope addressed to Mrs. Harper, my mother. Inside was a letter from Daniel dated 1987. It said, "Mrs. Harper, I am sorry to write again. Marlene told me Ellen asked for no contact. I will respect that. Please tell Ellen I wish her a peaceful life. And please tell her I kept my promise too. I never forgot her. My mother had never opened it. It had been intercepted before it reached her. That detail mattered. For years I had wondered if my parents knew something. Now I knew at least my mother had not. Marlene had done this alone. I took photographs of every page. Then I placed the originals in a new folder. Daniel asked, "What do you want to do?" I knew what he meant. Confront her, forgive her, expose her, walk away. I was 73 years old. I did not have another 50, 5 years to waste being uncertain. So I said, first, I want the truth in her own voice. That afternoon, I invited Marlene to dinner. I did not tell her why. She arrived at 6 carrying a bottle of wine. She hugged me. Then she kissed Daniel on the cheek. I watched her do it. I still do not know how she managed. We ate roast chicken. We talked about weather. We talked about the wedding cake. We talked about a neighbour's new fence. My sister sat at my table while the proof of what she had done waited in the drawer beside me. Finally, I said, "Marlene, Daniel told me he came to our parents' house in 1986. Her fork stopped, only for a second. Then she picked it up again. "Oh," I said, "he says you answered the door." She looked at Daniel, then at me. I do not remember that. Daniel said nothing. I kept my voice calm. He remembers. Marlene shrugged. That was almost 40 years ago. I reached into the drawer and placed the fake letter on the table. Finally, she whispered, "Where did you find that?" Not, "What is that?" Not, "I have never seen it." "Where did you find that?" I leaned back. In Mom's cedar chest. Marlene closed her eyes. I asked, "Why?" Marlene looked at me with tears in her eyes. For one stupid second I wanted to comfort her. That was habit. Then I remembered the unopened letters. She said, "You do not understand what it was like." I almost laughed. What was what like? Everything was falling apart. Dad's business was struggling. Mom was already having health problems. I had 2 children. My marriage was a mess. You were the only stable person in the family. So you decided I belonged to you. That is not what I meant. You told the man I loved that I had a husband and children. You had built a life. I had built a waiting room. She flinched. I continued. You wrote a letter using my name. I thought it was better. For who? She looked down. That answer came without words. For her. It had been better for her. I said, "Was it because you wanted Daniel?" Marlene's head snapped up. No. Then why does your notebook say, "Why should Daniel get to come back and be the hero?" She started crying. I was angry. At him? At everyone? Then the real confession came. When Daniel came to the house in 1986, something ugly in her had finally found an opportunity. At first, she planned only to send him away. Then she became afraid he would find me through someone else. So she wrote the fake letter. She intercepted his mail. She hid the letters. She kept doing it until he stopped writing. I asked, "Did you ever think about telling me?" She nodded. Many times. When? After Dad died. Then after Mom died. Then when I got sick 3 years ago. But you did not. I was ashamed. I stared at her. No, you were afraid, she whispered. Maybe. That was the moment I stopped seeing my sister as someone who had made one terrible mistake. One mistake happens in a minute. Marlene had made the same choice again and again for decades. I said, "You came to our wedding." Marlene covered her face. "I know." "You hugged him." "I know." "You told us it was wonderful that we found each other." I did not know what else to say. I stood up. "That is the problem, Marlene. You always knew what to say." She asked me to forgive her. I said no, not then, maybe not ever. Forgiveness is not a debt the injured person owes the one who caused the injury. That night I asked her to leave, but I was not finished. For years I had helped Marlene financially. The next morning I called my attorney. What I wanted was simple. I wanted every part of my future that Marlene had quietly expected to control removed from her hands. Marlene was listed as the executor of my estate. I removed her. She was the largest beneficiary after a few charitable gifts. I removed that too. I had planned to leave her my house if Daniel never returned. Instead, Daniel and I created a new trust. When we are both gone, most of what remains will support organisations that help veterans, missing service member families, and older adults searching for lost relatives. The prom dress will go to the Willow Creek Historical Society with the real story attached. Not a fairy tale about a girl who waited. The truth. A story about love, lost time, and the danger of letting someone else decide what another person deserves to know. Then I did something even more difficult. I called Marlene's 2 adult children. Susan cried. Mark walked outside and stayed there for almost 20 minutes. When he came back, he asked one question. Did Mom know Aunt Ellen never married? I said yes. He looked at the floor. That was the moment he understood. Marlene had not made one bad decision in 1986. She had watched the consequences for 38 years. When relatives asked why Marlene was no longer part of my financial plans, I answered honestly. Some people told me I was being too harsh. One cousin said, "She is still your sister?" I replied, and I was still hers. No one had much to say after that. A week later, Marlene came to my door. She looked smaller, older. She handed me a folder. Inside were records from a safe deposit box, more letters, 2 photographs, a newspaper clipping about Daniel's unit, and one final thing, a letter I had written to Daniel in 1972. I had given it to Marlene to mail because I was working late. She never mailed it. I recognised my handwriting immediately. The envelope was still sealed. I opened it with Daniel beside me. I had written, "Daniel, everyone keeps telling me to accept that you may never come home. I do not know how to do that, so I am not going to. I am keeping the dress. I am keeping the promise. If you are alive somewhere, please keep trying. I will be here." Ellen, Daniel wept when I read it. I did too. That letter was more than 50 years late, but he finally heard it. Marlene stood in my doorway while we cried. Then she said, "I am sorry. I believed she was sorry. I also believed sorry was too small. I told her, I hope you spend the rest of your life becoming someone who would never do this again. She asked, "Does that mean you forgive me?" I said, "It means I am not going to spend the rest of my life hating you. That is not the same thing." Then I closed the door. Some people imagine revenge as humiliation. They imagine shouting, public shame, or watching someone lose everything. That was not what I wanted. My revenge was simpler. Marlene had controlled my choices by controlling information. So I took control back. I stopped paying her bills. I changed my will. I removed her from every position of trust. I told the truth to the people who had a right to know it. And then I refused to spend another day organising my life around her comfort. Daniel and I had already lost enough time. We went to Arizona to visit the grave of his mother. He stood there for a long time. Then he told her out loud that he had found me. One morning, I woke before Daniel and found him sitting at the kitchen table with the ivory prom dress spread carefully across 2 chairs. I asked what he was doing. He said, "I wanted to see it in daylight." I sat across from him. Daniel touched the skirt. "I am sorry you waited," I said. "I am sorry you believed the lie." He looked at me. "Do you wish we had known?" That question could have swallowed both of us. We could have spent the rest of our lives imagining the children we might have had, the house we might have bought, the holidays we missed, the arguments we never had, the ordinary mornings that belonged to some other version of us. I told him the truth. "Yes, I wish we had known." Then I added, "But I do not want to spend the time we have left mourning a life we cannot recover." Daniel reached across the table. "That sounds like you." "What does?" "Still practical." I laughed. "That was always Marlene." He smiled. "No, Marlene controlled. You endured. There is a difference. I have thought about that sentence many times. For decades, I believed waiting was the strongest thing I had ever done. Now, I think choosing to stop waiting may have been stronger. I had waited for answers. I had waited for official records. I had waited for Daniel. I had waited for my sister to become honest without ever knowing I was waiting for that too. At 73, I decided I was finished waiting for anyone else to tell me what my life meant. Daniel and I have been married for a little over a year now. Sometimes people ask if the story has a happy ending. I never know how to answer that. Happy endings are usually clean. Mine is not. We lost decades we can never recover. My sister cannot give them back. An apology cannot create children we never had or Christmas mornings we never shared. Justice cannot reverse time. But justice can return ownership. It can return the right to name what happened. It can put the truth back where a lie used to live. And that matters. So before I end, here is the simple summary of my story. I was 18 when I promised my high school sweetheart, Daniel, that I would save my ivory prom dress for the day he came home from Vietnam. He disappeared and was listed missing in action. I waited for decades, believing war had stolen our future. 55 years later, Daniel found me. We married. Then, on our wedding night, he revealed that he had actually returned to my hometown 8 years earlier. My sister Marlene had told him I was married with children. She gave him a fake letter in my name. She intercepted the real letters he sent me. She kept us apart because of jealousy, resentment, and her desire to keep me tied to the family responsibilities she benefited from. I found the proof in my mother's cedar chest. I confronted Marlene. I told the truth to the family. I removed her from my estate and stopped financially supporting her. Then Daniel and I chose to spend the time we had left living instead of letting her betrayal consume what remained. And here is what I learned. Love can survive distance, but it cannot protect itself from lies when people are denied the truth. Family loyalty should never require silence about betrayal. Forgiveness is personal, and it does not mean restoring trust. Justice does not always mean punishment. Sometimes justice means taking back your choices, your voice, your money, your future, and your story. And most importantly, time is not endless. If you love someone, tell them. If you owe someone the truth, tell it while there is still time for the truth to matter. If someone has taken control of your life through secrecy, do not be afraid to take that control back. I still keep the prom dress, but I do not keep it in the attic anymore. It hangs in a glass front wardrobe in our bedroom, not because I am waiting for Daniel. He is already here. I keep it there to remind me of the girl I was, the woman I became, and the life no one will ever be allowed to choose for me again. Thank you for watching and listening to my story. Please like this story and leave a comment. I would especially love to know where you are listening from and what country you are in. And if there is one line I hope you remember, it is this: war stole our youth. My sister stole our second chance. But neither of them got to write our ending.